Hi, everybody. Steve Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Circle of Brilliance. Today, I want to finish up one little question from last time around that I still felt we didn't finish off. And then I got a new thing for us to explore. So the thing that I thought we didn't really finish is this idea about the heart line versus the thresholds and do they move? So
Mm-hmm.
the last proposal, if you will, I think it was Kathy who said that she thinks they might reverse when you're in the outgrid danger zone. But I guess my question is that if I am 10-10 and you decide that I want you to give me a solid definition of what 10-10 is. Does 10-10 automatically include the fact that the thresholds of activation and delegation are laying right on top of the heart line? Is that a given? Or could you say, oh no, it's perfectly possible to be at 10-10 and still not take action to do or delegate? What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen?
I would agree, but I just see it as a lot of spinning activity.
A lot of spinning activity. Tell us more about that.
Well, just effort put forth to try and accomplish something, but instead of closing, they're more focused on the effort.
So they're more focused on the effort. So does that, if they are actually taking action, I don't want to, if you're wait, oh man. If the thought is that by taking action, they are automatically at a threshold, I mean, I know I'm babbling, but that's where my head is. Is it possible to be a 10-10 and not take action? So
That's
David,
the
you were saying,
engagement
well, you
ring,
can
isn't
you
it,
can
T?
be moving, but that doesn't mean you're finishing, or what are you thinking there?
Right. That's in the engagement ring, isn't it, T?
Yeah, it's definitely in the engagement ring. It's actually probably inside of execution because
Hmm.
that curve, that danger zone cuts right through here. And I believe the way the arrow looks goes that way. I could dig out the diagram, but I think roughly. Oh, actually, lo and behold, guess who already has it? There it is. Um, so yeah, if you look at that, that brink between engagement and execution is right at past 9-9. So by 10-10, you're actually in the execution kind of mode, which again, does that carry with it the absolute um, fact of someone taking action or delegating? Hey,
So T,
Kathy,
I
we're
think it's
continuing our discussion about do the thresholds automatically come to 10-10? So thoughts about that, gentlemen? You want to
yeah,
do
I
that?
think it
David?
I think it's situational and it depends on the strength of the secondary energy.
All
Um,
right. So now,
and and T, to that point, delegating could be interpreted as an action.
delegate. Yeah, I absolutely agree that to me, it's still you're doing something. The doing is happening, whether you were doing it yourself or delegating it, you still did something. So I agree completely. Looking at the energies, to be a 10-10, you are an amiable driven driver. An amiable driven driver. So that's the energy you have about that particular activity. So, hmm, so again, can we say that it is characteristic of 10-10 that you are going to take action to do or delegate? If you're at 10-10, your thresholds are kind of by definition there. Anyone ready to make that? Yeah, Kathy, go ahead.
I'm ready to make that assertion because I think the comment, the point that was made last time was that you've already gone through a whole process of, assuming you've gone through the whole process of moving along the heart line, of getting there. And something might interrupt you,
Hmm.
something externally might interrupt you for sure. But I think that all things being equal, if nothing external is going to get in your way, I think you are ready to act, and I think you will act.
Okay. That's now, oh, David, did you want to add something to that?
No, I I don't see 1010 as being like the threshold. If they're an amiable driven driver, then whatever the task is, whatever the objective is, if there are people involved, that is going to have an impact.
Okay. And that impact would be to
Think
delay
about them and
taking action
consider the
or,
impact of your action.
okay. Well, the reason why I was thinking that if they were coincidental there, and again, as Kathy pointed out, I don't know that that's what we're actually asserting yet, but it's definitely a thought we're deeply playing with. Then Kathy's thought that past 1010, once you're in the danger zone, the thresholds can actually begin to reverse their locations of occurrence. So that would mean if I'm in the danger zone, I may be far more upgrid in my delegations and, relatively speaking, downgrade in my doings, maybe because of the chaos that occurs out here, the disorder that definitely accompanies that. Would I then have does this individual, the outgrade danger zone, do they have a tendency to delegate too soon and delay doing too late, even though, relatively speaking, they are delegating and doing more quickly than other locations on the change grid may do? That's a lot of words. Any thoughts on that? Hmm. Yeah, Kathy, I'm just curious because were you thinking that everything's going hunky dory until we get to the threshold and then maybe, or until we get to 1010, and then the thresholds might change? So did you think of that as being, sporadic or on a track?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think that, there's still the tendency, the potential to just go straight out,
Mhm.
so I was just thinking that, when I first brought that up, that there is that possibility for chaos happening
Yep.
in that area. Not necessarily that it will,
Chaos,
but
chaos and
there's the
sloppiness.
possibility of it.
Yeah, David, what were you saying?
Chaos and sloppiness.
Chaos, sloppiness. It's also, think about this individual that we're describing, and I might be describing a 1212, and I think that Kathy was just describing an 1111. It's someone who's been on the right track to get where they're going, and for the most part, they're still on the right track. But maybe a new challenge threw itself out there, a wrench got thrown in, and that's testing their ability to do what they were doing to begin with and handle whatever this. Did you use the word disruption, Kathy? I forget.
I
Yeah,
don't know if I used that term, but I was, I mean, I meant the same thing. If
yeah,
something, yeah, I mean, it's the same concept.
right. Where I think if they're actually out here at 1212, it may be that the disruptions have become so problematic that they are, and again, they're still in power. Never forget this person is still in power. So their level of tension is not upgrade like stress or even power stress, but they may very well say to others, you do this, just do this, blah, 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 which are all the sounds of delegating prematurely. Or they might be saying things like, well, just wait, because their head's occupied by other things. So things that need to get done may become slightly delayed. That to me would track with my thought of what a 1212's reality is. Any thoughts around that, everyone? Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
I mean, that makes sense. Um, but I think, almost anything can happen in that level of the danger zone, um, based on external factors, based on internal factors.
Absolutely.
Whether it's external chaos or internal chaos.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's what the danger zone is all about, if
That's right.
that's what we've learned so far.
I
Yeah.
would also say that their awareness has got to be limited.
I would agree that they have blinders on for sure. Because remember, the further outward you go, this is about task orientation out here. They're very task driven. So that would map. That would very much map. So I thought we could also test out this thought one other way, and that is to look at some of the other engagement rings and ask ourselves if, by definition, we're comfortable saying that as someone enters intention, formulating an intention is an action in and of itself. It's a decision that's being made. That means a threshold of activation came into play at the moment that intention was formulated and proclaimed and whatever. When they then take that intention and move it into this engagement ring, they actually start doing some stuff. Well, can we say by definition that means the threshold of activation has lowered itself? Or whatever, those things tend to go together. So, and similarly, we could track the threshold of delegation just as well to say it's becoming more efficiently done. Does that feel right to you guys?
I'm not sure that the threshold was reached and it spurred action. And as that action took place, they're going to naturally move down grid
Right. Okay.
if they're
Because
getting
it's
any results. But I don't know that you need to necessarily have another threshold event for the activities to continue.
oh, I believe you are standing at a continuous threshold when you're actually doing the something. And I'm open to you guys throwing out what your thoughts are around that. So, for example, I was outside trimming a rose bush, and every time you look at a rose bush, I don't know if you guys are into pruning, but you got to do it, and Linda's an expert at it. And so we're out there. There's an actual debate that's happening while you're doing the whatever the task happens to be. So I don't know that the threshold, what would you think the threshold does if I'm continuing in my act of doing whatever it is that I'm doing? What happened to the threshold? Is it still with me, or has it dropped, risen,
Hey,
disappeared?
Chris.
What do you thought?
Good.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. All right. So,
I'm actually not sure.
yeah, I'm not either. That's all right. Build your case for or against. Yeah. Um, So part of me would say, I believe that the potential for the threshold moving to be more coincidental with the heart line does increase as someone moves further out grid, and just by default, that moves them more in towards power to also to begin with. I can say the potential for those things to happen is heightened, but I don't know that I can say that there is a guarantee that someone who is sitting at any particular location on the change grid is going to do something. That would mean then that the thresholds are a separate concept of tension management that are floating on a layer, if you will, above the rest of the change grid as we know it. It's the dynamic element that's really going on there. And that means it's separate from our perceptions. Okay. All right. Thoughts about that? I've muted. You guys are all muted. So, so we shall. Yeah, Chris, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, see, what comes to mind is Blanchard's work on development levels, because I think you're at that threshold until something that happens. Because if an event happens that can change the task to be perceived harder, then you're no longer going to be in that same place because you're going to move,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like in Blanchard's work, you can be at D4 at that particular task, but then an event can take place like a pandemic, and it can move you to D3, you lose confidence, or it can move you to D2 where you're unsure about even wanting to do this anymore, and you're ready to
Right.
give it up.
Yeah. You lose interest in it for whatever reason that might be
Yeah.
driving that. Yeah.
I always see that point as someone standing right on the edge of the diving board, and ready to go. And 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 it would take something to disrupt it
Okay.
not
Interesting.
to happen. That's
can we,
how, that's my vision, whether
well,
that
good.
makes,
So let's go back to our Olympic kind of, can you, put that Olympic diver right there at 10:10 and um, kind of describe your point on, yeah, I think that what you said is that unless something is going to stop them, they're going to keep going. Oh my
that's my
goodness.
feeling. That's how I see it. That there's already an energy that's moving when you're
Right.
at that point. Yeah, and it would take something, like I said, either internal or external to stop them. Either they have a heart attack, or they have a sense, or they
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah, yeah.
fright,
They see
or
something that
or they
gives
see
them pause for
something
pause.
and it's going to stop them. But otherwise, the energy has a momentum at that point that would propel them forward, is how I see it. Now, I could be
Hmm.
wrong. I don't
No,
know.
I think this is a very, very interesting point being made, because it's almost like what you're saying. At a certain point in time, the level of drive, perhaps even the level of tension, develops a life of its own, and it becomes the, I don't want to say driving force, but that's what I mean. It's going to be whatever's going on, and it might make something happen in spite of things that we might notice as potential obstacles. I mean, that quickly we're assessing things and deciding it's okay to jump. So yeah, so that's interesting. Does it become an energy that overrules reason at a certain point? Thoughts about that, or do we just go into another direction altogether? Hmm.
No, I think thoughts can overrule reason. Absolutely.
Yeah, we know they do upgrade, and
Yep.
any place we
And I
have
think outgrid they would as well. I
downgrade
think,
as well.
there was a movie, The Hunt for Red October, where someone was saying, that the Russians had deployed all of these nuclear subs to hunt down the Red October.
Hmm.
And the gentleman said, well, they're not looking for it. They're attacking it because they're moving so fast that they would have run over my daughter's stereo at full volume and not even heard the noise. That's the outgrid danger zone.
Okay. All right. And it becomes more severe the further out grid you go. Right, right, right. Okay. That was really a good movie. That's a good illustration for this, because again, you're describing a place of 1010 where the person or the situation, if you want to generalize it to the operations of the submarine, um, they know what they're doing. They've got all this ability to do whatever it is that really needs to be done, but they're certainly not underestimating the challenge. They know the challenge is quite high. A test is afoot. Certainly those kinds of movies become interesting watches, because there's always got to be a time where someone perceives their ability as perhaps being even greater than that. They get rather grandiose in their assessments, and so they take on even greater threats. And now there's a jeopardy that's created. Like, remember, the person out here, the driven driver enjoys, or how about, sorry, the driven driver likes to create risk where it doesn't exist, purely to make things more interesting. So, there's this kind of that's where the chaos comes from, because no longer are all these people behind them able to really understand the thought processes that are driving this person. And I think Kathy's point is interesting. It may simply be the momentum that's gotten them to this point that is really what's pushing it even further, even faster. So yeah, interesting.
Similarly to like David had just mentioned in the movie Crimson Tide, a
Hmm.
great point was mentioned because chaos was the best place for Gene Hackman, who played the captain, to run a drill to test the entire ship. And
Yes.
he talked about fear and chaos because you got to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because you don't know what's going to be presented to you in those situations
That's right.
of chaos, and you have to remain calm and focused.
Chris,
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
a great example.
Great example. And you have to imagine that even like we have a friend who's a pilot, and if he goes on, vacation for even like a couple of weeks, he's got to go back through a training kind of thing and get into a simulator and all this. And I said, how many times in the simulator do you have an absolutely a flight that's not noteworthy in any way? You're just going up and you're going down and landing. He goes, they don't train us for that. He goes, they train us for when things go wrong. They create situations in our language now of chaos in order to help us become comfortable in what should be, as Chris pointed out, an uncomfortable situation. Yep. Okay. All right. So I would say it's fair for us to end this section of the conversation saying that there's a lot of interesting thoughts around the movements of the thresholds and how this human energy field is going to affect whatever that happens to be, because that's where this all fits in. So, but nothing conclusive yet. Perhaps we'll revisit again in the not too distant future, but someday there's a question mark that it would be fun to be able to resolve. Yeah. Okay. With that, any final comments, questions, thoughts about this whole idea of thresholds and how they get to the heart line? Anything? Anybody?
So T, with that one diagram where you're showing the upgrid, downgrid running in parallel with the heart line,
Oh, yeah.
you're saying that the heart line actually draws those to you?
I'm wondering if I move further out grid, does the heart line pull those towards me?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. And part of that feels very right. But then that would simply say that the most productive human being there is, and I don't know if this is wrong, is someone who's at a 10-10. Again, as many of you have pointed out, it's really is situational, because I can tell you, it's only in situations where 10-10 is a good place to be. If we're out there trying to do something, accomplish something, grow something, I get it. We're all pretty much in agreement that you need to be a balanced driver, a 9-9, or maybe a little bit more of a driven driver, a 10-10, but you don't really want to be out there at 11-11, 12-12. So that makes sense if we're talking about a situation of doing something, accomplishing something, etc. But as we've talked about on many an occasion, if the goal is to simply find our centered, balanced place and be one with the universe and escape the confines of this physical reality that we're kind of trapped in, then I go like, that's not the ideal place to be. And the thresholds become a very different thing there, because I'm not really doing anything. I'm just really kind of being.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's something to look at, that the further
I
out
would,
grid I go.
I would change that diagram, T, and I would have the upgrid and downgrid thresholds go their normal route, and then when you get to like 8-8 or something like that, have them dip.
Have them start to kick into motion.
Yep.
All right, let's test that for a second. If I've got someone who's at 2-2, now, mind you, I only have to move them up a little bit to hit the threshold, because that's a very small area of the change grid. But if I'm 2-2 and I'm on the heart line, obviously I'm at 2-2, is there an opportunity for me to take immediate action to do or to delegate, as the
I
case
don't think so.
requires? All right, tell me what's interfering with that.
Ability.
I don't have the ability, even though the challenge is that maybe that I don't know enough to know if there's anything to do or anything to delegate. So that feels like that could be right, which would support your thought that as we move further out grid, the thresholds do start to move down. Where it begins its movement, I think is interesting to explore very much, because I do know if I'm a 5-5, the reason I'm moving out grid is because I'm becoming increasingly doing of something, increasingly active in doing something, whatever, I don't know what word to use, but doing
Wanting
is
to take
becoming
more
more and
risk.
more. Yeah, go ahead.
Wanting to take more risk.
Well, wanting or needing in the case of in-grid behaviors, it's normally to help out another person, another situation. So they're becoming more of that driving force, but most definitely they're trying to do something, they're trying to accomplish something. So I can feel energetically this movement out grid is all about drive. It's all about doing, it's all about accomplishing something. But if I'm only at a 4-4, 5-5, even a 6-6, but I'm at a 6-6 incidentally, not deliberately. Remember, we talked about that before. Many times we will go through 6-6 and never leave the surface of the change grid. It's when we deliberately come to 6-6 to do our work about centering and meditation and mindfulness and all those sorts of things. We're trying to find that positive place of separation with care. That, I get all that, but let's just say we're just on our way elsewhere. We happen to venture through whatever that is. I don't know that we're actually experiencing it as on our voyage out. We're just moving. To Kathy's point, perhaps the movement out grid is accompanied by acceleration as we move further out grid. So it's not an even amount of drive, but an accelerated, expanding energy of drive that's happening as we move out grid. So yeah, so David, I think that there's something there. Where does this movement actually begin? And we can kind of see why it ends up there. And then again, to Kathy's point, in the danger zone, it would be interesting to look at behavior and say, do the positions actually reverse themselves, even though they're still going to be in power? Make no mistake about it. The outgrid danger zone has no place outside of power that we could talk about. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thoughts about anything else here you want to throw in, or we'll just leave the thoughts where it is and say the circle shall come back to it at some point. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So let's move on to the next little thing I wanted to talk about, and that has to do with what happens between the green circle and the red circle. So we've talked about this before. It's been talked about most recently as our discussions about the human energy fields have been going on. But when we're between the green circle and the red circle, why is that sometimes okay? What might be we doing or involved in or thinking about that makes being between the green circle and the red circle the living of life? So we don't want to be in the danger zones. There are times we want to be in the middle. Why is it okay sometimes to step outside of our little green island and get into this in-between space?
Yeah.
Maybe they need to experience discomfort, which will spur them to action.
All right, so give me an actual situation that a client might come to you with that you pick the place on the change grid, but they're there. What might that situation be, and why is that okay? So discomfort would imply that I am gaining or losing control. If I'm recognizing I'm uncomfortable, at that moment, I'm feeling more or less control. What? I'm uncomfortable.
Losing a little bit.
I'm losing a little bit, or I've lost it and I've plateaued here for a while, but whatever, I know that I'm not as much in control as I would like to be. So I would like to think there's an element of trying to gain control that's happening. And so where on the change grid am I trying to gain control? Do people that are very far down grid
No.
try to gain, and why not? Why aren't they?
Stress.
They have what?
Power stress.
Oh yeah, I got to get up here because something is presenting itself as a puzzle, as a challenge, and it's an opportunity for you to say, if I'm willing to be uncomfortable for a certain period of time, I can be more comfortable in the long run. So let's come up with an example that, in fact, David yourself brought up earlier. David's decided to get back out there to the good old-fashioned ways of marketing oneself, so chambers and all that sort of a stuff. Well, I don't know if you love going to chamber events. I certainly know I've never gone to one that I'm glad I went to because I'm just not a social person. But I recognize that by going through those sorts of actions, you're able to end up gaining greater control. So where are you on the change grid when it comes to living that life behavior? And how do you feel about it? Why are you doing it, et cetera? So give us the play-by-play inside of this green, between the green and the red circles. And anybody, feel free to chime in if you got a thought about where that's actually coming from, where the discomfort might be coming from, or I don't know, David, where are you on the grid when it comes to doing your networking work?
I'm upgrid. I'm,
Upgrade,
I'm in power stress.
power stress, and
I,
so if I'm
I was
between
in power when I did my research to find out who I should join, and then I moved into power stress and executed.
and executed. Now, in the act of executing, are there any elements of it that moved you further upgrade?
Sure, you don't know the people, you don't know the opportunities. There's a lot of unknown. It's a brand new environment that you got to try and engage with and find a way to monetize.
Okay. And do you enjoy the task itself?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I'm a little bit like you, T. I remember, when I was in my 30s and 40s, I loved sales call after sales call after sales call. I mean, I would do 15 a week. And I've gotten to the point where I'd rather do a few and have them work out, but not be as engaged as I used to be.
Okay, very interesting. So anybody else on the call want to throw in some thoughts, about where David might be resting right now on the change grid? So I'm going to go between the green and the red circle, and I'm going to go counterclockwise. You guys tell me where you think I should stop. So is he right here at the threshold of activation? Is he moving up into a little bit more of an expressive driver kind of an energy, upper power? Is he here along the edge between being upgrid and outgrid, where we know people become very charismatic and schmoozy and all those, they're romancing the deal.
That's the order of the day.
That's where, okay. Otherwise, we'd be saying, well, no, he's really further up in power stress because some aspect of his ability is being challenged. So, or something has appeared since the last time he went to these events that he went, they do what? How? I'm supposed to have my own UPC code, or what do they call those square things where everyone uses these days?
Q code or
Yeah, QR codes. So I said,
QR
oh, I
code.
didn't realize I'm supposed to have that on my business cards, you know? So you encounter something like that at one of these events, and you might go like, well, dang, people are just tapping their phones together. They're not exchanging business cards. So, I could see there might be some things I'd encounter that put me even further upgrade, but I'm still not up here in a panic state. I'm not up in the danger zone, but definitely they've presented me with a big puzzle that I may want to put some energy into gaining that resource. So again, increasing our ability so the next time I go to one of these events, I can tap phones and QR code with the best of them.
The biggest signal to me, T, that I needed to get back out and start prospecting again. When I moved here in 1994, I had business cards printed and I still have some left.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, and like you need something, but I just don't see the current generation of business professionals. Um, I see them using technology far more. And
Mhm.
so if that's what we're trying to mix with, well, then that's what we got to be prepared to really do. And maybe electronic business cards are really a thing that it just instantly goes into your contact database. Or maybe if you're running Salesforce on one of your devices, maybe it has a way for you to capture images of business cards that it in turn scans and puts into your contact pool. I don't know, but why do I suspect that all that technology is out there and somebody's using it? So, yeah. All right. So what we just did though in exploring David's situations, we looked at a variety of other situations that if they occurred between the red circle and the green circle, are we okay with that, or is that problematic? So we just described, as David said, this idea about being in the middle, moderate perceived ability in a situation of great challenge. You're in power stress, so the doing is happening, and you are sitting, if you will, on that edge between. Wait, what am I looking at right now? Yeah, you're sitting on that edge between the driver and the expressive energy, the intention being strong and the engagement beginning. All right, so you guys, can you look through all those layers all at once and see the section I'm talking about? So that sounds like a really good spot for someone in that situation to be. What happens if someone's going to an event like David's going to, and they're coming there as this driven driver, amiable driven? Yeah, I'll say that, even an amiable driven driver. How many of you want to bump into amiable driven drivers at a chamber event? No. Why don't we care to spend time with them?
They're too pushy.
They're too pushy. They're so focused on their own outcome that, they forget it's networking. It's a give and take thing. There's a mutuality that's supposed to be happening here. Nope, nope, nope. They might be hunting for something. I mean, obviously they drag themselves to the event for a reason. But if they're there, I got to believe they're blind. Everything we know about this area of the change grid is going to hold true. They do not make for a good networking group. So a good networking group is built of people from where David was saying he was at as far as the situation is concerned. If we have a whole group of people who feel moderately capable, in a nice range certainly, but moderately capable to meet the challenge that the event presents to themselves, they're up in power stress, they're being very friendly and engaging, they're, if you will, a driven, expressive, or an expressive driver. This is all good energy for an event such as that. So I want to again point out to you that there's a great deal of things that we do between the green circle and the red circle, and that could be a very good spot for certain sorts of things. Now, the question becomes, well, why did David move out to an area between the green circle and the red circle? It was because as he examined life inside the green circle, things were not as he truly wanted them to be, believed they could be, thought they should be, needed them to be, whatever. But something was going on that basically said where he had to turn to his fellow villagers inside of the green circle. I am off on a quest. I shall return, and off he goes to do whatever it is that needs to be done so that he can bring back the things that are going to make that section of his island even more, robust, lovely, perfect, whatever word you want to give it. Did I take the metaphor too far, or is that interesting to think about? I think we step outside to make our interior experience even better. Even better. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's what's the word I want to use? It's diversity. It's being
Yeah,
able to bring back new energy. Yeah.
right. It's problem solving, it's new relationships. There's a lot of good things that come out of this wedge. And by the way, if we look at one of the other layers I have, where'd I put it? No, that's not the one I wanted. But it's the one where we have the you're going to be an advocate or you're going to be a motivator or whatever. It's the same spot. All that stuff is still happening. I'm showing you other things, but I think you're absolutely right. So there's a lot of good reason why someone might decide to step to a place of discomfort in order to help their interior. Looking at it outgrid, I think you also see something pretty straightforward. Why does anybody want to take increasing risk and continue to grow their ability to succeed at taking those risks? Why do people want to go this much further outgrid than they already are?
Well, living inside the green circle, T, I think, I don't know, but I get the sense that if I'm there long enough, I might lose some awareness.
Awareness of.
Just what's going on in life, what's happening with other people, what's going on in my company, what's going on in the marketplace. I'm a little
Possibilities and potentials.
pained,
Yep.
and I need to step outside of the green circle to kind of bring myself back into touch with reality.
Yeah, to really get things done. So we know this if inside of the green circle where you're, keep in mind, we're talking about this driver wedge, or even more so if you want to stay inside of the gray lines. This is where that leader role kind of gets put to the test. Well, I'm doing all that because I want more money. I want to do something more impactful for the world that I live in. I want to change things. I want to be the driving force behind that. Maybe I don't want fame. Fame feels a little bit more upgrid. You guys agree with that? A little more of that expressive energy, or for the people who are questing fame, these people might be questing after power, if you will, or position, rank, you know, so that's how they are more likely to keep score. They won the game. They're the first, they're the best, they're the whatever. Where this person might be, everybody loves me and I get invited to all the parties and everyone wants to be around me and be me. And then, you know, you're up for a little bit further where you're building it, as we pointed out before. So anyway, I can see lots of reasons why I would step further out grid, or why I would step further diagonally up and out. Why would I want to step further up grid than my green line? Why, what happens? Oh, good grief. What happens up there, and why is that a good thing? Potentially good thing. Anybody thoughts about that? Why would someone willingly place themselves in a situation where they perceive themselves as having lower ability than the challenge at hand requires?
Yeah, just to learn.
To learn something, to experience something.
Be a victim?
Well, I think that depending on the circumstances, they could be exposing themselves to that potential. Um, yeah, if they are stepping into harm's way without the bravery or the confidence that we find out grid, but stepping into harm's way because they didn't know any better, or they thought, you know, what's the worst that could happen, you know? But I think that, to Kathy's point, this is about trying something new and different, a willingness to step into, again, discomfort to find comfort moving forward. For example, um, I don't know why Linda and her sister enjoy hang gliding, or what are those things, parasailing, or whatever they call it. I
Yep.
have no interest whatsoever in putting myself into such a situation, but they do it. And what do they get as a result of doing it?
A lot of fun.
A lot of fun. It's thrilling. You know, they're doing something that others would be.
Dopamine.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, go ahead. Tell us what other great things could happen upgrade.
Oh, I have a question about it because I know people, and I'm guilty of this, and where you'll have a deadline to meet and you wait as long as you can. Like, what's interesting to me, because you put yourself in stress
Hmm.
for the last minute to take care of a task, but it's not necessarily that you have low ability. So I'm thinking it's a higher ability and
Yeah,
the
I
challenge.
think
So I
you're,
think you're on the outskirts, I guess, of stress, power stress.
yeah, well, I think that as you were starting to describe it, at least I heard that whole learning thing where this person, in fact, knows more than they think they know. So sometimes you need to learn what you already learned, or not necessarily relearn it, but reclaim it as something you already know. And when you talked about reaching that deadline, I think that they have a great level of ability to perform the task itself. But when the question changes, the activity changes to complete the task by a deadline that people are going like, what about? I can hear now why stress would add to it, because I've added an element of a time deadline. Does that resonate, Chris?
Yeah, it does. I think people, I know a lot of people that's addicted to putting themselves in that position, waiting for that last moment to do something
Oh
because you feel
yeah.
like you're most productive, where you're not productive because you have because everything else that has a priority is just pushed to the side.
Well, right. They could have been a lot more productive a lot earlier if they had
Right.
just done that. But they waited. Remember, we said definitive change occurs two places on the change grid, and upgrade changes are driven by external factors. So somebody gave them a deadline. Well, that's a change, but they may very well wait until the last minute because they don't want to do it. I think I shared with you that a great piece of wisdom I've learned over the years was that, and where did we get it, Linda? We said we were going to remember where we learned this from, but if you got to do it, get it over with. If you got,
Yeah,
we were
I don't
watching
remember.
Traders. Was that what it was, dear?
I don't remember.
Yeah, but someone said that if you're going to do something anyway, it makes no sense to put it off, delay it, avoid it, dread it. There's all this negativity that's going to come along with it. So
Right.
if you can't get rid of it, then get on with it. And I thought that's a pretty useful thing to hear. Yeah.
See,
Like,
I think I'm I'm thinking of persons that are going through the career transition process.
Mhm.
May put themselves up grid because, particularly if they've not been in the job market for a long time.
Mhm.
I hear that in my career coaching with folks. They've not had to do a resume in a long time, so that has them uncomfortable. They've
Yes.
not had to go through the interview process in years. And so that whole process of going through career transition, particularly when they've been downsized. And so they're not in that process because they elected to be, but because of some external factor has pushed
Yep.
them.
Yep. And I can certainly see how anyone who receives that news may suddenly feel as though they've been presented with a very high challenge. I mean, some of them might be even in the danger zone, but for the sake of today's conversation, let's just say they see it as being very challenging, but they very much question how ready they are to do it. And so their whole, what I say, ownership of their actual ability is, I think, artificially diminished or diminished, but not in reality. And so, what do we do when we have someone like that? Now, Tim, you know better than I do, and David as well. I know does a great deal of career sorts of stuff. But I got to believe you're doing one of the downgrade maneuvers right away. You're going to normalize it and simplify it. And say lots of people are going through this, and here's the process we follow. So, thoughts about that, Tim, David? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I did a lot of that work with Drake Beam Morin back in the day when they were one of the leading outplacement firms. And
Mhm.
the other interesting thing is on the that human energy field piece. I mean, their emotions are all over the place,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
trying to maneuver them and get them focused on how do we move you in a direction that goes out grid is very, very challenging for some
Right.
folks.
And so for a moment, let's look at the situation you've described and answer the question, how does this location on the change grid serve someone well in that given situation?
Yeah,
Otherwise, we think that being upgraded is somehow bad. But
because the energy that they're expending right at that point is emotional, So we talked when we looked at the energy field diagram of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Well, they're high emotional at that point. They're angry. They're all over the place,
right,
and
we got all the stress stuff going on. Yep. And moving around through the other. Yep.
yeah, yeah, because they've got things that are pushing them to the point of urgency.
Yeah. Right. Right. Now, do you believe, and again, this is for anyone who needs to be looking for a job, how long do you want them to remain with this upgrade level of energy? Keep in mind, most of what I'm looking at between the green circle and the red circle, well, oh no, actually, in all fairness, it's balanced. Part of that is power stress and part of that is stress. None of it is in the danger zone. So it's all here. They recognize they've got some ability, but the challenge could be triple what they think they have. Why does that serve them well? How long do you want them to stay there? Or how about this? What happens if their level of tension goes down too far too fast? Thoughts, David? You're unmuted.
Oh, they fall off the map.
And then what happens to their
They
job
stop.
hunt?
They stop doing what they know they need to do
Mhm.
and fade.
Right. And so they're kind of going like, well, now that I understand what's involved, I can breathe a sigh of relief. Maybe I should take some time. Maybe before I go looking for a job too seriously, I should consider that vacation, spend time with my family, take care of me, all that dialogue comes into play. So this is why I just want to say
I'm
that.
sure Tim didn't let him get that low.
Well, no, that's the whole point of someone who's really doing the work. Why do they need you? Well, at least in part, it's to make sure that their level of tension stays sufficiently high enough. Tim, you unmuted there real quick. So what do you want to add to that?
Well, the other piece to that, as David was saying, that falling off, they wind up not executing
Right.
and wind up in this stagnant place where, 3, 6 months down the road, there's been absolutely no progress.
Yep. And there they
And
are.
and they're pointing the fingers everywhere except themselves.
Right. Because then what are they saying to you? Oh, why didn't you make me do this sooner? Blah, blah, blah. They want to blame everyone because that's human nature. We don't want to take
Tim,
responsibility.
did you find that those people who were outplaced, and I did a little work with Right Management, which was in that business as well, going through the stages of grief?
Oh, definitely.
Ah,
Absolutely. And they describe it as if it were a failed personal relationship, romantic relationship. I gave this company, the best years, and this is how they treat me. It's a really, really interesting road that they travel on that psychological
mhm.
piece.
Yep.
Interestingly enough, you just described this next place going counterclockwise. When I'm halfway between expressive and amiable, this is where a lot of my, I want to say, well, I don't think I'm inadequate, but for whatever reason, boy, I sure am feeling as though I was lacking. That's why they got rid of me. And I got done this for them and that for them and blah, blah, blah. And so there's all that kind of the need to express what one is feeling about the way they've been cared for or cared for others. Does that kind of map to that, Tim?
Oh, yes.
And then
Oh,
at a
yes.
certain point, you need to go like, yes, 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 that's all fine and dandy. We'll talk about it as long as you want, but we need to find you a job. So move them up good about that because they actually need to have more attention
Yeah.
about the task at hand. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had that same experience doing careers. So, I mean, I didn't spend most of my career doing that, but I did enough of it, career outplacement and all of that, particularly for people who were downsized. And there is that process of helping people move out of victimhood,
Yeah.
that sense of
That's what we're here.
victimhood, which is a really powerful place for somebody to be, a negatively powerful place for somebody to be, and helping them begin to think about themselves as having choices. And I used to use the Covey donut a lot, circle of influence, circle of concern.
Right.
Where are you gonna, how can you begin to take control? But yeah, it's all of that. It's moving them out of that in-grid space and more into at least power stress for a short period of time.
Yeah. And
More,
ultimately
more towards the
some
center.
driver.
Yeah, towards the center. Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately some driver energy has to be summoned. Or they may never get around to doing what actually needs to be done. So you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Victimhood, I would say, is going to um, exist on a continuum of itself. I think that when someone is where I'm squiggling at right now in the change grid, this between the red and the green, they may be expressing their victimhood or what they feel about it and all that. Where I wonder if I'm further in grid here, I'm feeling it, but I'm less likely to express it. Or is that probably the danger zone? Yeah, interesting thing to look at. Okay, so again, just so we can say, I guess I'm bringing this up because it seems like we've spent a lot of time talking about why you don't want to be in a danger zone and why you do want to be at the center. Well, I think the larger portion of the change grid is in between the green and red circles. So we should explore what's happening there as well. So, okay, why is it okay sometimes to be somewhat down grid? So let's say I'm over here on the border between driver and analytical. Why is that a decent place for me to spend some time?
Actually, isn't that where resentment lies?
If I'm way out here, yes, it does. So I gotta be careful, particularly when I reveal what kinds of tasks this kind of fall into here, you'll definitely know why that
Right.
resent element is going to come into play.
I,
Yeah, you gotta,
I actually have found myself there, T. I belong to a few organizations, and sometimes when I feel I don't get the due respect, or I am listened to in a particular way, I get a little resentful lately.
mm. And tell us more about the words expressing the resentment.
Oh,
They
you
should.
know, knowing there's a better way to approach something, knowing that something can be improved upon, but having people stuck in their current reality, I find that gives me heartache,
Yeah, well,
heartburn.
one of the qualities that was once described as being attributable to people of genius, we'll talk about as far as extremely high level of ability to do something and command of it, is that they have to be able to develop patience because the majority of the world is nowhere near where they are as far as that particular thing is concerned. So they will have that genius is accompanied by a lifetime of feeling as though you're being held back by people and situations and spiral dynamics,
I need to
whatever it happens
lose
to
my,
be.
I need
You're
to
ahead of your
lose my
time.
sense of patience.
Yeah. And
Yep.
so that's what
Need
needs to
to
be.
lose my sense of patience.
So T, that sounded to me more of a power stress plotting, because
Well,
David said he used the word frustrated,
right.
and that is a dimension of emotion.
Absolutely. And it's outside of the red circle. But do you see
Mhm.
that there's this little bit right here? It's outside of the red circle. Technically, frustration is the hallmark emotion of 12 and 6 on the change grid, where you really do believe yourself, at least relatively speaking, as being the master of whatever the subject happens to be. And you've been presented with a task that to you is only moderately challenging. And so the task is technically beneath you, although you will do it far better than anyone else is likely to do it. But why are you the one that has to do it? Why is it sitting on your shoulders? And again, you're in power apathy. Why can't I delegate this to somebody else and count on it being done? I want to be doing things that are further upgrade and further outgrid. Ugh, these people drive me nuts. So can you kind of relate to that? It's definitely an unhealthy emotion, make no mistake about it.
Yep.
But how do I counterbalance it? It's by helping that person cultivate patience, understanding, and accepting the realities of the deck of cards or the hand of cards they've been dealt when it comes to this particular activity. Now, just to show where those come from, many activities are performed extremely well between the green and the red circle here. It's anything having to do with, I'll give this as one set of examples, routine paperwork. You've got to do your taxes every single year. And yeah, you may want the refund and you, or whatever, but you're kind of going like, ugh, yes, I can do it. No, it's not all that challenging. And so fine, I will move into this downgrade, outgrid just to get it done. Get it done, get it formalized, take it off my list once and for all. That's an example of an activity. If I need to create directions for someone else to follow in order to do something that I can do so easily, the act of writing out those policies, procedures, etc., is felt as drudgery. Nevertheless, I know this for certain. If I get this done and done well, my inside the green circle experience will be enhanced because of it. And so it's a good place to go. It's not particularly exciting. I mean, look, it's downgrade and you want someone else to do it, but you're the one who's stuck with it. At a certain point, if this person does not receive the acknowledgement and the appreciation for taking time away from the things they would rather be doing in order to help us with this particular thing, I promise you that feeling of frustration and resentment is going to appear. And yeah, it's true, they might be bouncing all over, but again, they're still on the dark side of the moon. Even though they're not in a danger zone per se, they're still outside of that red circle where not so great things are likely to occur. Does that resonate with everyone? Does that make sense? Can you see?
Yes.
Plenty of
Yeah.
situations where that would work. I mean, look, we need to go to routine medical exams, routine dental exams. There's all kinds of things that we have to do where we go, yes, I have the ability to do it. No, it's not all that challenging. Ugh, I don't feel like doing it. I get it. I'll be better off if I do it, but I'm not going to be excited, you know? So yes, I'll do it, but don't expect me to be happy about it. So I do believe there's a grumble factor that might be coming along here, most certainly as we move even further down grid. That grumble factor is going to be present as well. Okay, so with that, we're past our time. So on our next call, we'll take care of these the other side of the change grid. But hopefully, you're realizing that there are plenty of occasions in life where we are going to willingly step into an area of discomfort because we believe that by spending some time in that area, we're going to end up in a better spot. Oh, there we go. Edie, go right ahead. And Chris as well.
And unmute now. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I don't think it's just intelligence. So, I think I'm an extreme right brain person, and those tasks, I mean, I lose thousands every year because I won't write a contract out. I won't do this, that. And I don't think it's just because I'm a genius as much as I'm an off the grid right brainer, and I love creative activity instead of admin activity, which is lower left brain. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I still think you're brilliant. So there you go.
Well, thank you.
All right. Okay. So anything else before we're done for today?
Thank you.
Thank everybody. Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.